everyone. Welcome to TSP Weekly. This is your tech startup podcast for Monday, March the 30th, 2015. Today we are here recording at Innovation Guelph. I think our second time recording at Innovation Guelph, if I'm not mistaken. If you hear a train roll by in the background, it's just because we're at the center of all the action in the city here, and sometimes that happens, I think, right? Let's do some introductions. My name is Darren Conley. I'm a tech entrepreneur from Kitchener-Waterloo, but very happy to be here in Guelph today. Joining me is my wonderful co-host, Mr. Stephen Campbell. How are you today, Stephen?
I'm doing well. I was born in Guelph, so it's always fun to be back.
Excellent. Is this nostalgic for you to be here?
Every time I drive into Guelph every morning, it's nostalgia, no question. And I'm wondering how long it'll last, but it's still magical. Yeah, after 4 months driving in, it's awesome.
I grew up in Hamilton, and I don't feel that magical driving into Hamilton anymore.
I feel sorry for you.
I've done it a lot, so maybe that's why.
It's an awesome feeling.
Enough. Yeah, fair enough. Well, joining us today, we have two guests joining us in the Innovation Guelph recording
small
studio.
boardroom today.
Yeah, that's right. We have Kelly Brooks and Mark Rye from SpeakFeel. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Very good.
Perfect.
Excellent. Yeah. Now
filled with chia seeds and smoothies.
Yeah,
yes,
that's right. Yeah, we tend to talk about breakfast foods on our sound check, and so we heard all about the smoothie. That's great. I was very rushed getting here today, and typically I do a lot of research about our guests before I arrive. And today it's completely spontaneous because I didn't even get a chance to look at the website or anything. So let's get you guys maybe to tell our listeners and me what SpeakFeel is all about. What's the kind of the 1 minute pitch?
I started SpeakFeel back in 2009, actually 2008. I picked up an iPhone and I realized that it was going to change everything we did in our lives and what businesses did. So I started SpeakFeel, and we've done native app development for all of that time, as well as integrated data solutions. So we take data, device, we bring them together to help consumers, businesses, or other, users navigate maybe older things or newer things more smartly, wisely, with data and device.
Give us an example of an older or newer thing they might be navigating more smartly.
So, for example, some of the most recent things we've done have been for sales teams, product support teams. We build applications. They take their phones out into the field. They collect data on various things, environmental data, mechanical data. They sync that back up to the cloud with their device, and then somebody, perhaps in Chile, Washington, or somewhere else, can look at real-time data that's been generated from the device through a native application.
Interesting.
That's really cool. That went very quickly from you picking up an iPhone to having a mobile app in Chile.
That's right.
What's the idea formation, or can you talk about a little bit more about how you sort of got the idea that you saw an opportunity and how you formed the team, or how that sort of inception of the SpeakFeel came about?
Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur by birth. Like, it's what I do. And there's been a couple of times in my life where I've got what I call my gut punch. And that is a feeling in my gut where I've got to drop everything I'm doing in my life, go back to school, or start a company. And the gut punch is usually driven from, I don't know if it's Irish intuition. I'm part Irish. But I just get a feeling that something's going to change, that there's going to be disruption. And I love to be in that disruption. I'm like, how can I get in there, and how can I essentially make solutions for that and make money off of it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Now, were you a developer before SpeakFeel started, or did you, when you picked up that iPhone, say, I've got to go and get some coding skills under my belt, or how did that work?
I have a background in web projects since late 90s. I did a lot of web project deployment.
Okay.
I've worked with developers quite frequently. I'm more marketing, branding, strategy, the visionary.
Okay.
But I love working with developers. I love talking to them, extracting the complex brain things that they have going on and putting that into simplified format for consumers or clients. So I love leading a development team, even though I'm not a developer myself. But I have enough knowledge that I've garnered over the last 15 years to speak quite intelligently to it. And
were you involved in mobile development at all before 2008, before you decided to start SpeakFeel?
We did a little bit of an experiment with the studio I was with. I said, you know what, this is going to be hot.
Right.
Let me for 6 months play out there and see if we're going to get a bite.
Right.
And one of our first clients was one of the largest real estate firms in
Wow.
Canada. So
Wow.
I'm like, there's something here.
Yeah.
So and then I went just at it. I'm like, I'm going to apply my web knowledge to mobile, and hopefully it all works out.
So how did you grow the team then? Did you start hiring, or did you have any funding, or was this all bootstrapping from sort of friends and family and credit cards that you had at the time?
Yeah, bootstrap, lean and mean. Like, I've run a very lean organization. A lot of my financing and money goes into my staff.
Right.
We've had very low turnover from staffing perspective, but it's because I was so careful in building my team. We would contract work out, see if we liked them.
Right.
And then if they worked out, then we would bring them on. And that team member would say, I know 2 more people that we could possibly bring in. So it was a very tight hiring process based on personality and skill set, because when you're running a small team, everything needs to fit.
Sure.
One of our smart previous guests, Mr. Michael Weckerly, talked about hire slow. And I think that's very good advice.
Yes.
Yeah. Take your time to find the right people, right?
And that's what we did.
Yep.
We did, yeah.
Now, I would have thought, if it was me, I think in that place, if I didn't have a lot of mobile experience, like there are other people already who are, heavily involved in the mobile world and who have already been doing kind of mobile development, maybe not on the smartphone scene, but, but there were digital applications for mobile before the iPhone came out. I would have thought to myself, like, how am I going to play catch up to all of the experienced folks out there? So for you, deciding to step in at that point, like, was it, did you have some sort of secret sauce or, some special edge that you felt that you could bring above and beyond the people who are already operating in that space?
That's a really, really great question. I think in the end, a user experience is unique per the device or the platform.
Right.
The cell phones, flip phones from 15 years ago is an entirely different user experience and targeted towards a different audience than smartphone applications. Smartphone applications, the user experience is about simplicity, graphically appealing, easy to use, reliable. And I have a quite intensive background in user experience for web. Right. So my one main strength, I think, and I've passed it along to my team, is make it simple and make it pretty and make it sound. And that's kind of what we've always pursued.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, Mark, we've heard very little from you so far.
Yeah, that's right. I'm letting Kelly do the intro here.
No, it's good. How do you fit into the whole picture here? Were you there from the very beginning, or what role are you
Mark, you're the...
I met Kelly probably in SpeakFeel about 4 months ago and started a small contracting arrangement, helping them do some market research. They're an established service company on the mobile project side, but Kelly was talking about product and how does she move into product. And my background is really around technology products. So I've been working with Kelly and the team to help take the expertise that they've developed on the service side with their customers and start to formalize that into some product areas. So we're getting started in that process, but we're still early. We're learning from our existing customer base.
Yeah.
The good thing with SpeakFeel is there's a lot of knowledge there because Kelly's done such a good job of creating an existing customer base, creating pockets of knowledge within her team. So there's a lot to draw from.
Sure. Now, you guys have been around now for a little while.
2009?
7 years, 6 years. Do you still feel like you are a startup, or do you feel like you're kind of now well planted and established? Like, can you still kind of have that agile, lean mentality, even if you are kind of 6 years out of the starting gate? How does it feel from that perspective? That's
an excellent question as well, because I've talked to a few people about this. I feel really passionately about unstarting up. And I'm always, thinking we should really start some type of group called the Unstartup, because I no longer want to be a startup anymore. I'm not a startup anymore. We're established. We still operate lean. We're still very agile, so we have a lot of great concepts that we've carried forward. But now we're at the part where we can start really, progressing in certain areas and the mistakes that we've learned. We all make mistakes in business. Without making mistakes, we don't get stronger.
Sure.
And a lot of startup mistakes can now be applied as we move forward into, a more experienced on startup company.
Sure. And what has it been like, running a technology company? I'm assuming you're based out of Guelph. Running a technology company based out of Guelph in an area that's not necessarily well known for tech startups compared to its neighbors over in Kitchener-Waterloo or maybe a little bit further in Toronto. We got a lot of agricultural stuff going on in Guelph. Have you found that it's an advantage to kind of be a tech company surrounded by not as much of the tech competition, or is it more difficult to kind of get your business moving without the rest of a major tech community around you? What do you think?
I think that Guelph is a major tech community. I just think we're a modest tech community. I think we're used to being in the shadow a little bit, but we engage with Waterloo. We take all of their great things that they've done, and we learn from those processes, and then we bring them back to Guelph, and we have our community here. And it's interesting because we do have access to some different verticals. Agricultural is a big part of what SpeakFeel does. We do a lot of development for agricultural technology. So yeah, we're here. Like I said, we're the modest technology community. But I think, we really benefit from having Waterloo right there, like all of the different industry functions, events, and things that my developers can participate in.
Sure.
I think we have the best of both worlds.
Now, maybe take things back a little bit, back to the start of things with SpeakFeel. What did you start with a fairly large team? You had already been working in the web development, like you said. So I'm assuming you had some connections, some people you knew that you could bring in. But how hard was it to kind of get up to speed as far as creating product that's actually usable, assembling that team of competent people? Did you have to wade through 50 resumes before you could find the right people, or did you kind of have those connections in place already? I know for a lot of other startups, that's the real trick, right? Is to find that early talent. You don't want to spend 2 years before you can, find the right team to work with. So
yeah, like I said, we have a very closed hiring process. We brought in one key person, that we knew had their fingers out in the community already, so that we would take their advice really seriously. This is a skill set we need next. Help us get those people. Help us. So the people that we brought in had connections, and then they reached out to help us find their remaining team members.
Gotcha.
So we really took our time. We didn't make a lot of rushed decisions at all. There has been some partnership changes. But that's all startup. It's like growing and forming that team, filtering out, making it stronger. It's just a process. You can't be offended by it. You can't let it hold you back. And sometimes you have to make hard decisions, and sometimes you have to make impulsive decisions. It's all part of being a startup.
Right.
Kelly, can you tell me a little bit about the embedded executive funding that you guys won? What was that program all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Mark, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, we'll shift over here. Just recently, we were awarded the Mars Discovery District Embedded Executive Funding based on a proposal that Kelly and I had put forward for some product design initiatives that we want to take on over the next 6 months. So it was a very competitive process that we entered into. I believe there are about 120 different proposals that were seriously considered for that. Out of those, 20, I believe, were funded, and SpeakFeel was. So
congratulations.
It's really exciting. And I think we were funded for a couple of different reasons. One is looking at how established SpeakFeel was as a service company, the expertise they've built up, the product ideas that we've put together and proposed, and then obviously the fit between Kelly and I. They liked all of those things. So that initiative's just starting now, and over the next 6 months, we'll be building on that and using that to go to market, do some market research, test some of the ideas and product concepts that we have come to put together so far, and then kind of whittle down to a minimum viable product that we'll want to put together. So
What was that package like that you won? Was that money or a mentorship or a combination of both? Or
Yeah, both. Exactly. We work with mentors here. We have access to folks within the Mars Discovery District as well, and obviously it includes a funding component as well. So
awesome.
all of those.
Are you allowed to tell us what the project is that you pitched, or is that hush hush for now?
It's under development. We can say
Okay.
in general, it's certainly going to leverage SpeakFeel's mobile expertise,
Right.
And work in the enterprise mobile solution space.
Yeah.
A lot of the clients that we've had success with at SpeakFeel have been in the manufacturing space.
Right.
So we've identified a spectrum of solutions that we can tap into in the sale and support of advanced manufacturing products.
So you're talking about your product by cloud?
That's a code name that we're using internally. Yeah.
And on the website, I guess, apparently as well.
That's right.
Where my
it
exhaustive
is.
research found it.
That's
Awesome.
right. That's right.
Yes. Interesting. Now, you had mentioned before about management of data, and we've heard this term big data being thrown around a lot in the last few years in tech circles. Would you guys say that you are like that quote unquote big data is part of what you are doing?
Yeah, it's funny
yeah.
because a lot of these terms, cloud, big data, essentially they mean some of the same things
Sure.
that they meant a while ago. They're just really great names for them now. But we've been engaging with those things for a number of years.
Sure.
So now we're taking that and we're saying, how can we help businesses, leverage their own internal, processes by using these terms, cloud
Right.
and big data for
so,
sure.
So for people who might have heard the terms being thrown around but don't quite know exactly what that's all about, like, can you just give us your perspective? When we hear big data, are we talking about just collecting mass amounts of data and storing it somewhere? Are we talking about leveraging data in order to accomplish something? Are we talking about?
I'll take the second one, please.
Yeah, I mean, what's your perspective on that?
I think it's all of the above. I
Okay.
think it's, there's so much data everywhere. I mean, whether it's old data, new data, it's just making sense of that and how do people use that to power everything that they're doing. So right now there's a lot of scurrying in the areas of how do we get this and make it into something that we can use, clues to a marketing strategy, financial information. I know that's really big right now. How do we take everything and make our businesses smarter? We've been, we've been collecting data for a number of years. We know how to collect it, but now that we have all of this, how do we make sense of that?
And how can I ask you to answer that question? How do we make sense of it, or how are you guys making sense of it?
I think we're still trying to figure that out. There's a lot of different ways where you can do it. Whether it's developing software to handle the data, are there more efficient modes of collecting it that we never thought of before?
Sure.
And I think part of it goes to understanding what problem you're trying to solve with the data in the first place.
Right.
So it goes back to user experience. It goes back to where are those circumstances where valuable information exists, but there's no way right now for it to be bubbled up to the person that needs it.
Sure.
So in order to solve the problem, you really need to go out into the field and see where the problem exists. And then you can create those ties back to the data and the source of it.
Yeah, so I guess it's all about context, right? Like on your website, you talk about analytics, strategy. So once you have them, you'll figure out what they mean, and then consulting. So here's the solution then, right? So it's sort of a 3-step process. That makes sense.
I think too of the kind of the consumer level data. So I'll give you a quick example for my own family. So my wife and I use these apps now. One of them is called Checkout 51, and there are a few others in this space where we are taking pictures of our grocery store receipts. They're being uploaded to somebody's server somewhere. We get some, $1 or $2 back, depending on what products we buy that are on the promotion that week. But all of that data about our buying habits is being collected and stored and supposedly sold to somebody or used for some, purpose.
Yeah, I've been looking at it, and your diaper usage is down. So Mira's potty training is coming along well.
That's good to know. Thanks, man. I haven't been tracking it that closely. But, and from our perspective, it's just like, I can get $2 cash back if I buy, Pampers this week.
Right.
But from the bigger picture perspective, there's a lot of personalized data out there that is being collected and analyzed, and who knows, what's going to end up being done with that. Do you have any thoughts about kind of from the consumer level of things, they're be more concerned about how much of their data is going out there, how it's being stored, how it's being used? Should we have some things in place for people to manage their own kind of contribution to the big data world, or should we just kind of blindly trust these groups that if they're going to give me $2 off Pampers, then I'm happy to hand them my grocery list? I don't know. Maybe that's a big question for you, but
yeah, I mean, this could be a whole other episode.
Right. Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, in general, yes, always take precautions to make sure the information you're telling people is what you want to reveal.
Right.
The unfortunate thing is we're so used to clicking user agreements now when we download an app, and most of us don't read the user agreement. And I'm not telling you to go out and read every user agreement. But I mean, just be smart about it, really.
Right.
But in the end, we've always been delivering data to somebody. Now it's just with a phone.
Right.
Before we used to fill out, different surveys by hand. We did a lot of data submission on websites, and now the process is being propelled because now we have these devices that make it so much easier.
I was going to say, even just paying for something with a credit card, you're sharing your buying habits with your credit card company and whoever else they happen to be connected with, right? So
yeah.
American Express has now gotten rid of plastic, and they're just on your phone, so your credit card is just your phone.
Have
now.
they gotten rid of plastic altogether?
Well, they have an app, I guess. So
okay.
The commercial is just a guy using his phone as opposed to the plastic, right?
Interesting.
So,
yeah. Fair enough.
It's coming fast. So Kelly, when you're developing, do you because you're doing native development, do you have any efficiencies? Or are you talking about doing a lean sort of mentality? Every time you do native development, you have to sort of start from scratch. Is there any efficiencies that you guys can use, or you have experienced over the years as you get smarter, where you can say, okay, we're using geofencing, well, we're just going to grab that and reuse it? Or is native development every time you're building the sandcastle from the bottom up again?
No, I mean, every SDK, so Apple or Android or whatnot, they have some built-in programming that we can reuse. All of my team are, they all have degrees in programming. So they know some standards, like with, object-oriented and taking that code and making it reusable. The thing is, we do a lot of proprietary work for big clients.
Right.
Where it's their idea, it's their code, and we aren't able to reuse it.
Right.
It's just not, a sound business decision to do that. We really take our client confidentiality seriously because we're in a very innovative space, and there's a lot of competition there. Right. So sometimes we can reuse. We always ask explicitly if we can reuse. But more than anything, we've just really learned how to make a process efficient. We know exactly the steps that go into the phases of the project. I have experts on each phase. So you just streamline your processes. You make it more lean and more effective.
Sort of an average when you sort of engage SpeakFeel? We're going to go through a discovery process, and then it's going to be 3 months, or your average sort of discovery to solution?
Yeah, so it varies on every project. Depends how integrated the project is, because some people just want a one-off app without any connections or integration. And then we have platforms that we're on like phase 5, phase 6 we've been working on now for 4 years.
Right.
So the projects really vary. And we keep really trying to become more in user experience testing, because a lot of the solutions that we deal with are built for people, like I said, in Chile, in a field. We can't replicate that experience here. So we're always trying to make that better.
Does that mean road trip?
Not recently.
You had mentioned that when you first got started, your kind of competitive edge was that UX knowledge and bringing that to the table. So now, in 2015, there are many companies out there that are doing software as a service. There are many companies out there that are building enterprise software. What's your competitive edge now? What sets you apart from
your unfair advantage?
Yeah, all the other noise out there that people are making about software development in this area.
Yeah, so basically our experience, our team, and it's really interesting because over the last couple of months, there's been a trend that's starting where large companies that normally would hire out a really big agency to manage their digital initiatives are now meeting with smaller firms like ours, with boutique firms, because we're lean, we're agile, we're picking up innovation really quickly. It takes 2 seconds for me to run out and buy a new device and start testing on that, where a larger group may have to go through some red tape to make that happen.
Sure, purchase orders and approvals.
Right?
Yeah.
So the
Gotcha.
larger firms that are actually large North American SaaS companies are starting to tap into groups like us and say, will you come in and be on site with us for, a number of weeks, develop this, and we can watch how you do it.
I know Canadian Tire has done that over at Communitech. They've actually got a startup team that is driving innovation to the corporate office that they can then approve or disapprove, right?
Yeah.
But they've separated them and intentionally. So CTI, Canadian Tire Innovations, is working on sort of that exact thing.
Yeah.
Being lean and being mobile.
And the other advantage that SpeakFeel's built up is really some very specific knowledge of business processes.
Right.
So while the playing field may be leveling on the technology side, it's really what have you learned about your customers? Have you developed some very specific knowledge there that you can then take that to the next one and be that much further ahead? And that's where SpeakFeel has zeroed in on a market space and learned about those, again, a lot of manufacturing companies, a lot of enterprise solutions. That's really unique to our company.
Sure.
How'd you come up with the name SpeakFeel? Speaking of marketing and user experience and all that kind of stuff, how did SpeakFeel come along?
And I get asked that quite a bit. So it was from the whole experience of picking up that iPhone, because originally you speak into your phone, you feel the phone, you touch it. And that's, what drove that name the name selection.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of that, but it's an interesting connection to make, though. Very cool. What advice would you give if I was a young developer just finishing school? I'm trying to decide what I want to do with my life now. I've done some co-ops here and there. Maybe I'm thinking of starting a software development company myself. What would you say? Like, if I wanted to start my own software company, and I think I have a little bit of knowledge. I think I've played enough in the space to compete on some level. Where should I start? Should I go out and look for a co-founder? Should I just start looking for customers? Should I just write programs and hope people like them? What do you think?
I'm going to pass this to Mark, because this is kind of Mark's specialty area right now.
Okay.
One, I will give Innovation Guelph a plug for that type of topic, because I think before you get deep into something, it's great to talk to people who have had experience. So that's why the Innovation Guelphs and the Communitechs and different places exist now, because they've been host to so many companies that have tried to do this, that have successfully done it, and they now have their own guides to help people that are just starting out, that cover a lot of different areas, whether it's a board of director, marketing, financing. So it's been done for the last little while. So I would suggest tapping into that.
Yeah,
I would encourage anyone starting out to see if they can find a straight line to actually making revenue.
Right.
Can you do business, get paid for doing what you're interested in doing? It might slow the path to ultimate productization or creating the company that you want. But having that as cash flow coming in to allow you to grow is what will buy you the time to build up the experience, to create the product, to make the connections, right? So I think slowing that startup phase a little bit and trying to become a profitable business, it's challenging, but you will earn a lot of respect from people in the business community when you can go in and say, I have customers that paid me to do this, and let me show you what I want to do next.
And
Spoken like a true business developer, right? Do you have any sales yet? That's a great idea. Is anybody buying it?
And I was going to say, it sounds like, for the kid who's used to kind of just sitting in his basement, with him and his computer, hacking away at code, what you're saying too is you might need to either develop some skills outside of just your technical skills, or find a partner who has those skills.
Absolutely.
Who can go out, make those connections, shake the hands, find, sell your skills to a business.
Know what you're good at, right? So if you need that partner that's going to balance off your skills, for sure, go out and find that and work together.
Sure. And we're still doing that now. Like the embedded executive program has allowed me to bring in an executive at the level of Mark,
right,
to focus strictly on product market development, which I understand it, I've done it before, but I'm going to let the expert handle that for 6 months.
Right. Sure. And that's another great starter principle too, is find people who can fill in those gaps where, you might have some skills in it, but there are other people who are, whose skill level exceeds you in that particular area, and let them run in that direction.
Yeah, because even if you want to look for funding for your product at some point, invest first in investigating the idea.
Right.
Because the investor is going to want to know that you actually took the time to do your research and you have a team that's suited to take that product to the next level. Because unless you have that for an investor to invest in, they're not even going to look at you. They don't invest in ideas anymore. They invest in team.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, just looking to the future a little bit then, you guys have this big project that you've got some funding for now, which is great. You have a customer base. You have things that you're working on. Where do you see SpeakFeel heading, in the future? Is it going to be a slow climb to, further success and further growth? Are you looking to kind of sell it off and jump into something new when you get that? I can't remember the term you used, the gut shot, the that thing that says I got to do another startup now, the gut punch. That's right. Or do you see this, as the next kind of 20 years, just growing SpeakFeel and seeing what happens? What do you think?
I think
not that we can predict the future with certainty here, but
I believe in doing in taking our time.
Yeah.
We've hit a certain plateau now, and we're pivoting. We're like, what do we do next? Yesterday, if somebody asked me, like when I first started SpeakFeel, I'm like, I want to sell in 5 years. I want to get out of this, and I want to move on. But now, within SpeakFeel, we keep taking it to the next level, and I'm very happy to keep taking those next levels.
Right.
Our experience and everything has given us some legs to take it to the next level. I think I'd rather have those legs than start from scratch at this point.
As long as you do keep innovating, right? You don't want to be complacent, right?
No, and that's the thing. We went to, an event a couple of months ago. Bruce, I forget, he was on the Dragon's Den, and he had built and sold Lava Life. And he goes, I've always been told that it was an overnight success. And I'm starting to learn that there's no such thing as an overnight success. It took him 17 years to build and sell Lava Life.
Wow.
I'm in year 6 in SpeakFeel, so as far as I'm concerned, I have another 10 years to put in before I can probably have a really true, sound, extremely profitable business.
Sure, and then become a dragon on the Dragon's Den, right?
Well, let's move on to some of our lightning round questions as we get closer to the end here. We've got a couple questions for you guys that are a little lighter than some of the heavy stuff we've been talking about, although we do want some advice from you guys here as well. So let me start off, and I'll just throw them to both of you guys as we go along here. You could travel anywhere for one day. Where would you go, Kelly?
Kenya.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why Kenya?
I have a real interest in what's going on there right now with wildlife, especially animal poaching, illegal animal trade. I'm very passionate about that. So there's some organizations there that I'd love to fly over and meet with.
Interesting. I have a documentary in my Netflix queue about poaching, and I don't know if it's in Kenya or Uganda, but it's in Africa. I haven't watched it yet, but very interesting.
If you could give Kelly a book report on that, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, sure.
The Coles notes, then you don't have to go to Kenya.
Yeah, with our Guelph winters lately, I'd say anywhere where there's a beach is fine with me.
Right.
Somewhere south and some sun.
Well, we had a guy say Mars once. I want to go to Mars. That would be cold.
That's for sure.
It was snowing like 3 minutes ago as we were talking. I thought it's not just the winters; it's the spring even too.
That's right.
Is, worth getting away from sometimes. Okay,
how about Kelly? The weirdest thing I have ever eaten is
probably the intestines of something
Didn't know
at
what
an
intestines
Asian
they were?
event. No. It was funny. We were at an event and everyone assumed that they were noodles and they were not.
Ooh, don't assume at an
Can
event,
I ask
right?
what event it was? Like,
Actually, a really good friend of ours who's Chinese got married, and we went to his huge wedding in Montreal. So it was
Right.
very family style. And it was funny because they put us at a table where no one really understood the food in the... I'm like, you did this on purpose. So
Yeah.
we wouldn't know how to navigate the food.
I think you guys were the entertainment for the rest
We
of the
were.
guests.
So
did you enjoy
everyone
them?
assumed it was pasta, and it wasn't.
Was it good?
It was different and unique, an interesting texture. But yeah, the rest of the meal was spectacular.
Sure.
Mark, any adventures in the culinary
Not
field?
too exotic. New Orleans, spent some time there on business, and certainly alligator and frog legs and crawdads and all of that starts to come out of the kitchen, and it's all good stuff. Just a little different than what we're used to.
True.
Sure. I ate camel once when I was in Qatar. It tastes a little like lamb. Anyway.
Kelly, what one thing would surprise us about you?
Well, those that don't know me, I'm an equestrian. I ride
English
and
or Western?
own horses. English, do hunters over fences.
Wow.
It's the one thing that helps me shut my head off because it's going
Interesting.
all the time. So yeah, I compete in equestrian activities.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You have the big boots.
Yes.
You seem kind of
I'm a big fan of boots. Yes.
Mark, what about you? Surprise us.
Probably music. I love to play music, guitar, sing, write songs, all that sort of stuff. So
Really?
That's a great
when
segue.
when I get a bit of time, that's what I like to
Can
do.
we find your music anywhere? Do you have a YouTube channel? Or
There's some floating around out there. I'll have to see.
were you part of a band in the past?
I have been on and off. Yeah, right now I'm just working on my own though. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Haven't
We're gonna
talked to
have do
Bowie in
some-
years, eh?
No, exactly.
Yeah, we'll have to do some hunting online and see if we can find your
All
stuff
right.
there, Mark.
So that's a great segue to my next question. What music are you listening to right now? Can we start with you, Mark, then, if you're a
Oh, that's
musician?
interesting. For the last couple of years, I've been doing the Mumford and Sons kind of, that sort of folk rock music.
Yep.
Listening to some great music out of the East Coast too. I like anything that has an acoustic guitar, a bit of rock, bit of country, that sort of thing. So yeah.
Awesome. Kelly, anything that's ringing through your head these days when you're riding horses?
Not necessarily when I'm writing, but I am a huge jazz fan. I love the Masters. I love, contemporary. I'm just a huge jazz fan. I hope to get to the Montreal Jazz Festival again this year.
Well, that'd be fun.
Very
Love
cool.
it.
Jazz
Yeah.
is one of those styles that I like to see live. I like to see it played live, but I can't stand to hear it on a CD. I shouldn't say I can't stand it, but I wouldn't buy a CD or something of it. I want to see the person with their instrument just going crazy.
Right.
Anyway. Sorry, Stephen.
Sure.
I keep interjecting here. I feel it's
Absolutely.
really-
I should ask you some of these questions so you can answer
No,
them.
it's okay.
Kelly, if you could go back 1 year and change something, what would you change?
Wow. That's always such a tough question.
Hopefully you've had a wonderful year.
Maybe go back 2 years then.
Yeah.
No missed opportunities or strategies where you
always
thought you
missed-
could change?
There's always missed opportunities. I can honestly say I wouldn't go back. Like, I just think I'm a very big fan of moving forward. And I always take anything that's been negative and I just spin it out in front of me and say, how can I, where's this taking me? Why did this happen?
Okay, let me give you my
yeah.
next question then.
perspective.
What's your biggest obstacle to success moving forward?
I think our biggest obstacle to success is not the amount of opportunity, but really focusing in on the opportunity. There's so many places where we can be, and it gets overwhelming, and we're like, oh my God, we could go here and we could go here. So that's why Mark's actually here too, is to help us pick out that little piece and say, how can we pick the right piece and build from there?
Right.
So it's filtering it out.
So
Yeah.
sharpening your focus then.
Sharpening focus, yeah.
That's great.
What do you
Back-
think, Mark? Same thing?
Certainly in this context, for sure, I've seen that there's a lot of different directions that we could go. So trying to find that narrow that down is going to be a goal going forward with SpeakFeel for sure.
It's a good problem to have. Too much opportunity and having to decide where to run.
Yeah, there's no question.
Yeah.
So here's another fun one. Google just called, and they bought you. They've offered to buy you for $1 gazillion, and you have accepted. So what is your first purchase with your $1 gazillion bill? Mark, what are you buying? A new guitar?
Well, yeah, a bunch of guitars for sure. Probably a boat to play them on too.
There you go.
That would be important for sure.
The minstrel.
It's a perfect combination.
Kelly, are we going with a 7-hand high equestrian jumper? Barn?
No. You know what? I don't even know. I don't even think I'd make a purchase.
No?
I'd go on a really great vacation for like a month and deflate and then hire a really great financial advisor and say, what do I do?
Yeah, that's great.
It's very practical.
So here's my last question. I don't know if that was 10 or not. We used some of them as we were chatting earlier. But
Yeah, sure.
What one item can our listener use in the next 24 hours to improve their business? Give us something that you guys have learned or experienced
that's
where
an easy one.
One of our listeners can do something tomorrow
Not necessarily
or
a
today.
tangible thing, but a piece of advice or
Their
or a product
phone.
or a-
your phone.
Pick it up and use your phone the old school way and talk to someone. It's so easy to hide behind email and websites and, it's hard to do research. But the bottom line is the phone still works. Find someone to talk to. Figure out what their problems are. That'll drive your business forward.
I like that.
Sure.
Make a phone call. What about you, Kelly? Any little pieces?
I would just say don't take things personally. It's when you're an entrepreneur, it's very personal because being an entrepreneur is a personal thing. But don't take everything personally. You need to climb above it. If you fail, embrace the fail and learn from the fail. I always do that with my team. If we stumble, we're like, what did we learn? What's the new process we're going to implement from this? So don't be afraid of the fail. Learn from the fail. That's what I would say for sure.
I like that.
Excellent.
Learn from the fail and move forward.
Yeah.
Do you want me to ask the bonus question?
If you must.
Oh no.
Here's the bonus question. Toilet paper, fold or scrunch?
Fold
Kelly,
or what?
Fold or scrunch?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get the question.
Really?
Good answer.
Well, most people either do one or the other. So this is what I'm just wondering.
Darren has a couple apps that he's working on, and he's getting
This is
some
my
metrics
research
for
on
them.
Gathering
research.
So
research.
it's a fart app. It's a dietary thing.
Right.
That's only one of them. We're collecting big data, man.
We're calling it
collecting big data.
flatulate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
Oh, what if I say neither?
Neither. Okay. We'll
That's
just leave it
I
up
don't
to
think there's a wrong answer.
imagination as far as what the other options could be. Mark, what's your perspective? Fold or scrunch?
It is a tough one for sure. It depends on the quality, I think, of what you're working with,
Yeah.
right?
I see.
You know,
Ply.
sometimes
Plies.
it needs to be folded and built up before you do anything, right?
Sure.
So I'd assess the quality and then go from there.
So again,
Interesting.
context. It depends on the context.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I tend to have the same technique no matter what the context, but
Really,
fair enough.
You're in the agriculture silo or the tech silo. It doesn't matter. You're still folding.
No, that's just me.
Securely
I'm
folding.
predictable in that department. Excellent. Well, I think on that note, maybe we should wrap things up. So that's it for today, folks. Let's throw out a big special thanks to our guests, Kelly Brooks and Mark Rye from SpeakFeel. Thank you so much for giving us that perspective that, not so much from the early startup perspective, but from the established and looking at things a few years out of the startup place. It's a
Yep.
perspective we don't usually get on the podcast. So it's
Yeah,
good
you've got
to-
your
to
driver's
have
license.
that.
You're allowed to buy alcohol. You're a teenager now. You're not just a little
Yeah.
kid running around. So it's really kind of cool. You're an
Stephen,
adult, right?
Always has to throw in a crazy analogy. It's part of his contract with us here.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
And thank you to Innovation Guelph for letting us record in their boardroom here with all the natural light. It's great. And thanks to you, the listener, for joining us on another episode of TSP Weekly. Please feel free to send us your comments, your questions, your criticism, and your feedback at our email address is feedback@tspweekly.com, or you can drop us a message on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is TSP Weekly. So for myself, Darren Conley, my co-host Stephen Campbell, and our guests, Kelly Brooks and Mark Rye from SpeakFeel, thank you so much for joining us here today, and we'll see you all again next week.